She caught you watching, and in that instant, something ancient and fragile cracked between you. I want you to slow down and breathe with me for a moment, because what you're feeling right now isn't just embarrassment, it's fear. Fear of being seen without armor, fear that the version of you she just glimpsed might change how she looks at you forever. As a psychologist and as a woman, I need you to hear this clearly. This moment is not about what you were watching. It's about what you believe it says about you. Most men rush to explain, minimize, joke, or defend. That instinct is understandable, but it's also the fastest way to deepen the wound. When she walked in and saw your attention fixed elsewhere, her nervous system didn't start analyzing content. It asked a much older question. Am I safe here? Am I chosen? Women don't experience moments like this logically first. We feel them emotionally, then we make meaning. You were likely alone in your head, chasing relief, curiosity, distraction, something that had nothing to do with her in that moment. But from her side of the room, it didn't look like escape. It looked like replacement. And before you argue with that, understand this. Perception shapes emotional reality. Intent does not erase impact. Here's the part men are rarely told. When a woman catches you, she doesn't suddenly think you're evil or broken. She wonders if she misunderstood the contract between you. She wonders whether intimacy is still mutual or quietly competitive. She wonders if she's been working harder than you to stay connected. Those questions sting because they don't come from jealousy alone. They come from attachment. Now let me gently challenge you. If your first reaction was shame so heavy you wanted to disappear, ask yourself why. Shame doesn't come from being imperfect. It comes from believing you're not allowed to be human. Many men grow up taught that desire must be hidden, controlled, or compartmentalized, while simultaneously being overstimulated everywhere they turn. That contradiction creates secrecy, not strength. What actually damages relationships isn't desire, it's silence. It's the emotional distance that forms when a man believes parts of himself must stay locked away to be lovable. Women sense that distance long before moments like this happen. The catching is just the visible tip of something already felt. I want you to hear something that may surprise you. This moment can either shrink you or mature you. Not by confessing every thought or swearing lifelong purity promises, but by standing emotionally upright, by being present instead of defensive, by understanding that attraction, fantasy, and attention are not the same as betrayal, but they do carry meaning when left unexplored. If you handle this with honesty, groundedness, and empathy, you don't lose respect. You build it. Respect grows when a man can tolerate discomfort without collapsing or attacking. When he can say, without theatrics, I see how that might have felt to you, and actually mean it. This isn't about fixing her feelings or proving your loyalty. It's about whether you're willing to know yourself well enough that being seen doesn't feel like a threat. Because intimacy doesn't deepen when you're flawless. It deepens when you're real and steady under pressure. Let me tell you what happens inside her after the room goes quiet. Not the words she might say, but the conversation she has with herself. Women are pattern readers. We don't freeze a moment in isolation. We trace it backward and forward, searching for meaning. She replays other small moments you forgot, times you seemed distant, distracted, less present in your body. Her mind doesn't accuse you out loud, it investigates you privately. This is where many men unknowingly make things worse. They rush to logic when she's swimming in emotion. They say, it didn't mean anything, without realizing how dismissive that sounds to someone whose nervous system just spiked. When a woman hears that, she doesn't feel reassured, she feels unseen, as if her reaction itself is the problem. Here's the truth you were never taught. Emotional safety matters more than explanations. Before a woman can hear your reasoning, she needs to feel that her experience makes sense to you. Not that you agree with it, but that you respect it. The fastest way to reestablish connection is not to convince her she's wrong, but to show her she's not alone in the moment. Many men confuse emotional presence with submission. They think acknowledging her feelings means surrendering their autonomy or being controlled. That fear is rooted in an old story about masculinity, one that equates strength with emotional distance. But real strength is being able to stay open without dissolving, to say, I can hold your feelings without losing myself. Now listen closely, because this is subtle and powerful. What she's actually watching next isn't your behavior, it's your regulation. Is your voice steady? Can you stay grounded without shutting down? Do you rush to appease? Or do you stay calm and available? Women trust men who can remain centered when things get uncomfortable. That's not dominance, that's leadership. This moment also touches something deeper in her: comparison. Not because she thinks she can't compete, but because comparison activates vulnerability. It raises questions about desirability, aging, effort. Even confident women have tender places. When you brush past that reality, you confirm a fear many women carry quietly, that their inner world is invisible to the men they love. And here's where I want to challenge you again. If you felt defensive, ask yourself what you were protecting: your privacy, your autonomy, or the image of yourself as a good man. Often, it's the image. And images are fragile. They crack under scrutiny. A solid sense of self doesn't. You don't rebuild trust by overcorrecting or becoming hypervigilant. You rebuild it by integrating honesty with empathy. By understanding that attraction doesn't disappear in committed relationships, but attention is a choice. And choices become meaningful when they're conscious, not automatic. This isn't about perfection. It's about maturity, about being a man who doesn't need secrecy to feel free, a man who understands that intimacy isn't threatened by awareness, it's strengthened by it. When you stop running from moments like this, they stop having power over you. What she's really asking beneath everything else is simple: can I stay connected to you when things get real? Your answer isn't in your words, it's in your presence. Now I want you to look inward, not at her reaction, not at the relationship, but at the habit itself. Not to judge it, not to promise to erase it, but to understand what role it plays in your life. Most men never do this honestly. They treat behavior like this as either harmless entertainment or a moral failure. Both extremes miss the truth. Behavior is communication. Sometimes it's communicating stress, sometimes loneliness, sometimes boredom, sometimes the quiet hunger to feel powerful, wanted, or momentarily unburdened. When a man doesn't know what he's using something for, it starts using him. And that's when it leaks into places he didn't intend, like moments where he's suddenly seen. Here's the psychological shift that changes everything: responsibility without self-attack. You don't grow by shaming yourself or pretending urges don't exist. You grow by asking better questions. What state am I usually in before this? What am I avoiding feeling? What do I actually need in those moments that I'm not giving myself directly? Women are incredibly sensitive to whether a man is conscious or compulsive. Conscious men feel safer because their actions are owned, not hidden. Compulsive patterns feel unstable, even when they're small. It's not about control, it's about awareness. If she sensed that this behavior lives in secrecy, that's where trust erodes. Secrecy isn't about the act, it's about isolation. When a man disappears emotionally, even briefly, a woman feels it as a rupture. That doesn't mean you owe her full access to your inner life, but it does mean you owe yourself honesty. There's something else men rarely hear. Attraction deepens when a man chooses presence over impulse, not repression, choice. Choice is masculine, choice is power. When you can feel an urge without being driven by it, you start carrying yourself differently. Women feel that difference immediately. Your energy steadies, your attention sharpens, you become more embodied. This is where self-improvement stops being about hacks and starts being about integrity. Integrity isn't moral perfection, it's alignment. Your actions, values, and self-image stop fighting each other. And when that happens, moments like being caught lose their emotional charge. There's nothing to defend when nothing is split. If you want intimacy that lasts, you have to tolerate self examination, not endlessly, but sincerely. Growth doesn't mean becoming sterile or numb, it means becoming intentional. The most attractive men aren't the ones with no impulses, they're the ones who aren't owned by them. And here's the quiet truth: when a woman senses that a man is working on himself, not for approval, not out of fear, but out of self respect, her nervous system relaxes. She doesn't need to monitor him. She feels met, chosen, safe to soften. This moment didn't expose your weakness. It exposed an invitation to become more self led, more present, more grounded in who you are when no one is watching. Because the man you are alone is eventually the man she meets, whether you intended or not. What you do with that knowledge determines whether this moment becomes a scar or a turning point. This is where everything comes together, and where most men either evolve or quietly repeat the same cycle with a different woman. The final truth isn't about her reaction or the habit or even the relationship. It's about the kind of man you're training yourself to be when discomfort shows up. Every relationship eventually exposes you, not because your partner is looking to catch you, but because intimacy removes hiding places. Being seen is not a failure of discipline, it's a test of self leadership. When a man panics at being seen, he gives his power to the moment. When he stays grounded, the moment passes through him instead of defining him. A woman doesn't need you to be flawless. She needs you to be congruent. When your inner world and outer behavior align, she can relax into trust. When they don't, she stays alert, even if she can't explain why. That alertness slowly erodes intimacy, not through fights, but through emotional withdrawal. Here's what mature masculine presence actually looks like here. You don't over-apologize to manage her feelings, and you don't minimize to protect your ego. You acknowledge reality without drama. You take ownership without collapsing. You remain warm without becoming small. That balance is rare and deeply attractive. This is also where many men misunderstand respect. Respect isn't earned by hiding parts of yourself. It's earned by handling yourself well when those parts are revealed. A man who can say through his energy, "I can look at myself honestly and still stand tall," becomes someone a woman can lean into instead of brace against. And let me be very clear, this doesn't mean living under surveillance or stripping yourself of autonomy. It means choosing transparency where it matters and integrity where it counts. When you live that way, trust stops being fragile. It becomes resilient. What happens next in your relationship isn't decided by what she saw, it's decided by who you become afterward, whether you retreat into secrecy or step forward into self-respect, whether you let shame shape you or awareness strengthen you. Men who grow don't do it loudly. They do it quietly, consistently, and without needing external validation. They become men who don't fear being seen because there's nothing inside them they refuse to face. That's when relationships stop feeling like performance and start feeling like partnership. Now I want to leave you with a question that only you can answer honestly. When you're alone, are your actions moving you closer to the man you respect, or just giving you temporary relief? Write your answer in the comments. Don't perform, don't impress, just tell the truth. If this spoke to you, like the video. Subscribe for deeper conversations like this, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this, because most men were never taught these truths, and silence keeps them stuck.